say what I'm playing, which is from Ravel's Miroirs. I'm playing the first and fourth movements, if I get that far. The first is Noctuelles, and the fourth is Alborada del Gracioso.
perform it, when you give it your interpretation, what are for you personally, if you had to say, maybe Ravel in general and this piece in particular, what are the most important musical aspects, or if you had to say, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 musical aspects that you think about when you tackle this piece?
The sound, the quality of the sound, especially this one, in also the rhythm, in the fourth movement, the Spanish rhythms, and here there's the 5 versus the 6. The accents, I think I have to be very careful with. Good.
Yeah, no, you mentioned very important things. The sound, rhythm. You say accents, you can say articulation in general, and then maybe about the language in general. This music, because nowadays it sounds because we've heard so much of French music and Ravel and Debussy, but in fact, especially the first movement is such strange music.
Very strange.
Very, very strange, very innovative, especially the period that it was written. So you said at the beginning, sound. I would say, especially for the first piece, before we play again a little bit for Alborada as well, but especially for this one, it is such an innovative piece, and the structure of the piece is so unusual, so strange. Sound is really, and dynamics are really the core. You said it at first, the core aspect of this music. And I would probably urge you just to start with to try and enlarge as much as possible the palette of sounds, different sounds. You have beautiful sound. You play exactly. You're very. You play very precisely, but perhaps you can, when we play again, I would love to maybe push you to go way more extreme. Because for this kind of music, Ravel in general, maybe even more than Debussy, the amount of different colors that we need to achieve as pianists is huge. And as you know, probably, many of these piano pieces that Ravel wrote for piano initially, then he transformed them to orchestra.
Yeah.
Later, mostly goes in that direction. And I'm thinking perhaps, or probably it's also because there were many reasons for that, but also because he needed an even larger palette of different kinds of dynamics, and sometimes the piano was almost not enough for him. And so the other thing that you can do, which helps me personally many times when I play, especially when I play Ravel, is to really orchestrate it in my mind as much as possible. And in these cases, especially for Alborada, it's easier maybe because we have all these different versions. And so let's start again. And first of all, I mean, just look at the first 2 bars. It's quite incredible. It's pianissimo, crescendo, subito, pianissimo again. So I heard it, but I think the effect, I would have loved to have a much more extreme effect. I mean, it's to start a piece with this pianissimo, crescendo, subito, pianissimo again, just within 2 bars, and then I'm not even talking about what's happening after that. Try to start again. Then we'll talk about rhythm and articulation. But first of all, I would love to, let's push it to the absolute extreme in terms of sound. And one last thing I would say, I feel that very strongly about Ravel, is that when he writes pianissimo or fortissimo, it's not just, as with maybe other composers, maybe more German composers, it's not only very soft or very loud. I think pianissimo and fortissimo for Ravel, and for Debussy to a certain extent, are really sound effects. They're not just dynamic markings. They're really a different kind of sound. So with that in mind, start again and really go as far as you can with the different dynamics. Yeah? So, what I hear as an audience member, I hear a crescendo just over the last maybe beat or so, last few notes. You play pianissimo, and then just in the last moment you play a crescendo. Again, I think that's really, it may sound like a small detail, but when he goes out of his way to write a pianissimo with a crescendo over the entire bar, you have to figure out a way to really open the sound from the beginning of the bar, and not just this little explosion at the end of the bar. Try again. I'm going to push you a little bit more. So to my ears, that was much better. But to my ears now, I'm not sure what's the difference between pianissimo crescendo and then in the third bar you have this mezzo forte. I need to hear a different kind of color when you get to the mezzo forte. I think, again, might sound like very small details, but this really makes the music richer. Try again from the beginning. Can you start? Very nice. Can you start much, much softer? This is already. Before that, you were giving us, I don't know, 20 out of 100 colors, and now much, I don't know, giving 50, and it makes a huge difference. Try once again, go way more extreme with the colors. Really, when you start pianissimo, I'm sure you can play much less. I'm sure. Start with, push yourself to, with this kind of repertoire, I think it's a huge part of it. Now, second thing, this whole way of writing for the piano, which very strongly was this new idea of how to write music that is written but that sounds improvised, which was this very innovative idea at the time, pushed by Ravel, Debussy, the Spanish composers of the time as well. So start once again from the beginning. Dynamics, articulation. I don't hear all the accents. I think you have to be very, very careful with that. And then last thing, can you give me, if I'm sitting in the audience, really this sense that this music is completely improvised. You have to play what's written, the rhythm, but you have to find a way that for the audience member it will really sound completely improvised. And that means, let's speak concretely, that means that when there's no accent you don't play. Because if you play accents where it's not written, you're giving rhythmic indications that are not there and that will take away from the improvisatory. Might sound a bit philosophical, but I really think it makes a difference for this kind of music. I need to hear that you're sitting there and you're completely improvising. You have to play exactly what's written, but somehow it has to happen. Once again, I really think you can play softer. That sound, and it sounded like you were just improvising in your living room, and I think it's a lot of what's so important about this music. Now, articulation, really, I think that's a key. You said it before. That's a key element in Ravel. So accents, right? I think you can be much more precise with accents in general. When there's no accents, don't play them. But also articulation, I would say we can talk a little bit about pedal, because my sense is, I think with all of us pianists, is that we have a tendency for French music, for this repertoire, to play with too much pedal, I would say. I really don't think that it adds much to the richness of sound. I think pedal, for many kinds of repertoires around that time, not just French, I would argue even for Russian repertoire, I think if you can achieve what you want without pedal or with less pedal, you will get much more interest. The sound will be much more interesting. That's a general comment. I try to tell this to myself, and when you achieve the sound that you want with less pedal, I think it's very rewarding. The further away you can get this music from any kind of romantic, and I think you're already doing it very successfully, the further away you can get it from kind of romantic expression, the better it is. I would say that it's a very general comment, but I think it's really important. Sometimes I'm sure you could achieve the same things with less pedal. It will be much more interesting. So for example, let's go here and try to think about this maybe slightly drier, fresher kind of sound. Let's go back to this idea of dynamics. I think you have a lot of dynamics markings here that are quite fascinating. I don't, this mezzo forte going to piano, crescendo, diminuendo. Try to be a bit more precise, and don't lose what you had achieved it very nicely. This you were rhythmic, and at the same time you were improvising. Keep that in mind all the time, and articulation for these octaves, very important. If you had to orchestrate it, what instruments would you give it to?
This melody?
Everything. So first of all, the left hand.
The left hand.
So the lower stuff, what would you?
This maybe to the wind instrument.
Okay. And this?
String. Sure.
Yeah. Be specific.
Well, cellos.
Cellos. Okay.
Violas maybe.
Okay. And what would they like? Okay. And what would they? How would they play? Would you give it to them like in a playing it with a bow, maybe pizzicato? there's not a right answer, but I think these are very good questions to ask yourself when you're playing this music. Just in general, I think it really helps, because you said it's very nice. You said winds, but try to be specific, because if you give this to, let's say, 3 flutes, it will be very different than if you give it I don't know, to 3 clarinets or to 3 oboes or something like that. And it will affect your sound very much. So let's do this. Tell me now exactly how you would like to orchestrate it, and then play it exactly that way. Decide. There's no one answer, but I just want to push you to try to imagine you being the arranger or the conductor and really achieving that sound that you have in your mind. That really exciting. You can tell me, I want this to be the harp also, or
this may be cellos.
okay.
And this the bassoon or this clarinet.
Okay.
Not sure. Just the string bass.
Okay. It can be really funky. I mean, you can give it to 3 trumpets with mutes as well. I mean, it can be. Ravel can be very strange with his orchestration. But anyway, try now to. You decided. Try to play. Close your eyes. Play this and think about that orchestration. I just want to give you that sense of when you have a color in your mind, don't stay vague with it. Because sometimes I can feel you want to express something with color, with dynamic, but you don't go as far as you could. So if you tell yourself, okay, now I hear this flute playing triple piano, try to really achieve it. Might help. Really nice. So you said, bass clarinet, I don't know, or bassoon, whatever you said. I think that's really the right direction. It's just an exercise, I think, with French music especially, because orchestration was such an important part of Ravel's work as an orchestrator, maybe the greatest one of all. I think playing Ravel really requires that kind of thinking, and the more you can do it. I know it requires a lot of thinking, but the more you do it, it will push you to achieve the colors that you want. Not that I want, that you want. Now, since we have to finish, just going to Alborada. I would say maybe just a couple of things, but they're all related to what we said before. For sure, I think rhythmically you can be more precise. Sometimes you do it, I can hear some accents, but many accents here I could not hear. All this part, I could hear them slightly, but not quite. I think in this piece, it has to be there, like extreme, completely. All these articulations. You can be way more diverse with your articulation. Don't forget that staccato is very nice, but you have 10 different kinds of staccato, and you can have way more diversity with the staccato. Just articulation in general. And one more thing I would say about Alborada is the humor and comical effects. Because in Ravel's music there's so much serious and precise and perfection is part of the Ravel world, but in this case there's a lot of humor, the whole aspect about this clownish character. And I think when I was listening to you playing, it was very beautiful, but it was very serious. And I think when Ravel gives you the opportunity to have humor in the music, you have to take it, because you don't have that many opportunities. So I would say for Alborada, rhythm articulation, way more, and yeah, this try to think about this lighter, maybe fun, bit crazy character that is there, and I say this because it has to be heard in the sound. It's not just it's the gesture, it's the sound. It will sound, if you think in that way, it will be more bubbly, more a bit wilder. Because you have it in your fingers, it's all great. I think now where you have to push the boundaries is with all these little details. Bravo.